جمانة جلاد شنشل، أنت عضو بالإنفستمنت كوميتي لمايندشيفت كابيتال، ومايندشيفت كابيتال بتركز على الستارت أبس اللي أسسوهم النساء. أهلا وسهلا فيكي جمانة.
تسلمي كاتيا، وشكرا لواتش بوكس أنه عزموني اليوم حتى أحكي على رسالتي للنساء، فشكرا كتير.
جمانة، واتش بوكس اليوم اختاروا لك ساعة شوبار إمبيريال كرونوغراف. هيدي الساعة سيلف وايندينج أوتوماتيك، حجمها 37 ملم، بتجي مع دايل أبيض وبلو أليجيتور ستراب. وكلمة إمبيريال بتجي من إمبرس، يعني أنت اليوم الإمبراطورة اللي اخترناكي لهالحلقة.
تسلمي، شكرا كتير.
بدنا اليوم نسمع قصتك ونعرف على your journey. فخبرينا شوي على طفولتك، امتى بلشتي تهتمي بالفاينانس والارقام؟ كيف ابتدت هالكيوريوسيتي عندك؟
كنت بطفولتي وقتها كان عمري يمكن 10 سنين، دائما كان عندي المثال الاعلى، جدي اللي هو اسس بنك بلبنان، وكنت عندي يعني دغري صار عندي طموحات انه فوت بهذا المجال. دائما شوفه in a suit عم بيحكي على شغلات اللي كانت بتهمني، وفعلا حتى يعني انا يعني مع امي وقت كنت روح على محلات بالمولات، دائما كمان انه بدل ما اطلع مثلا على التياب وعلى الشغلات الثانيه، كنت احب اروح اشوف الكاش ريجستر وكيف كانوا عم بيعملوا السيلز بيبل حتى يفوتوا السيلز ترانزاكشن. مرات اذا ما كانوا عم يطلعوا فوت ورا وشرب شوف كيف انه فيني اعمل الكاش حتى يفتح التل واسمع هذا الصوت الدرور وتطلع المصاري بايدي. فاي ثينك بلشت يعني من انا وصغيره، وبعدين فتت بمجال البزنس وبمجال الاستثمار على كبر.
امتى حسيتي انه في فرق بين الصبيان والبنات؟
صراحة يعني إذا بتذكر طفولتي ويعني وقتها كنت بالمدرسة، كنت ما لاقي في فرق بين الصبيان والبنات، وفعلا البنات بالمدارس إجمالا يعني حتى بيتفوقوا عن الصبيان بالمجال الدراسي وبمجالات تانية. ونفس الشيء بالجامعة. بفتكر أول مرة حسيت إنه شوية في فرق، أقول يعني برأيي أنا بمجال الشغل، ولو أنا بلشت يعني my career in investment banking, in a way I took advantage of the fact that there were not a lot of women applying for these banking jobs. So that gap at the beginning helped me. Of course, arriving at the bank and seeing all the C-suite level people, they were mostly men. There were no partners in my division, at least that were women. So I think these gender gaps, were kind of peak over time, as we go through and see the differences.
طب جمانة، برأيك شو هو الحاجز أو البارير اللي ما عم بيخلي النساء تحقق طموحاتها بالذات بالانفستمنت وبالفاينانس؟
بفتكر يعني في two prongs. أول شيء إنه في unconscious bias, gender bias، وهذا الشيء it's passed on from generations. فحتى إذا نحن بنطلع على حياتنا وقت كنا عم وعينا على الدنيا، ما كنا نشوف role models حوالينا اللي هن ستات، إن كان بمجال politics, sciences, investments, health and medical fields. وأنا I believe إنه seeing is believing. لازم يصير عنا يعني a lot more awareness of what are other people doing, other women doing in many of their fields. Once you break down the barriers of those role models, you see that the possibilities are actually what is holding you back as well as in your mind on the first point. Our vision and what is in our mind and the freedom to believe that we can be something else because we're seeing it in front of us at a very young age. And the other is that to go hand in hand with that is what's happening in every field where women are given the same choices, where women grow on merit, where women can invest just as well as men do and be successful.
I'm definitely going to go back and pick your brains for some investment tips. But هلا الشيء اللي بدي أعرفه إنه أنت لما كنتي بالجامعة شو درستي؟
أنا درست International Relations and Finance بجامعة جورج تاون.
كان في كتير بنات بهيدا الميجر ولا كانوا كلهم صبيان؟
بتعرفي بالسكول اوف فورين سيرفيس كان في بنات، بس بهيدا الميجر بقول كان في كتير اقل. وفعلا وقتها اجوا يعني شركه جولدمان ساكس على جورج تاون لحتى ينقوا تنقايه مين اللي بدهم ياخذوهم على الانترفيو، ونفس الشيء ميريل لينش ونفس الشيء جي بي مورغان ومورغان ستانلي. كنا ما كان في كتير بنات ان فاكت يعني عم بيقدموا لهيدا الشغل.
طب جمانة خبريني امتى تجوزتي وامتى صار عندك اولاد؟
تجوزت بال 1999 كان عمري 25 سنة من زمان، وأول ابني ولد بال 2002 اسمه خالد، وسعد بال 2005.
بس بدي ارجع للكارير تبعك جمانة. لما تجوزتي وصار عندك اولاد، هل اثر هيدا الشيء بطريقة سلبية على your career؟
بالحالتين بعد كل ولادة وقفت اشتغل يمكن شي سنة زمان، وكان هذا الشيء كتير أنا بدي أعمله، وزوجي كمان شجعني عليه. in both cases صار يعني صرت فتت بمجال تاني. مع ابني الصغير the silver lining was passing the baton and basically handing over to this amazing woman who then became my co-founder in the business, which we've been doing now for 11 years. I think كتير مهم إنه نحن as women we are gentle on ourselves, and to recognize that we are nurturers, and to recognize our place when it comes to early motherhood, that we need that time. هلا بكندا for example when أنا كنت ساكنة الماترنتي ليف بين 6 أشهر لسنة، وفي شيء اسمه paternity leave كمان، فهذا الشيء فيه يعني متساويين كتير which is also great.
So انت بتحسي انه اهميه الماترنتي ليف انه تكون الفتره طويله ومنيحه بتساعد المراه انه تكمل شغلها وترجع للمكتب وهيك، ولما تكون الماترنتي ليف قصيره ساعتها يمكن تضر الكارير؟
ايه I think انه يمكن تحط بريشر زياده عن اللزوم، ويمكن اللي يصير مش يمكن ما تضر الكارير، بس اللي مهم هلا اليوم بقول لك انه التكنولوجيا عم تغير كل شيء. هلا اليوم مع الزوم مع الفيرتشوال ميتينجز يعني حتى نحن بنستثمر بستات بيكونوا هلا مولدين وعندهم البيبي بايديهم وعم بيعملوا بيتش وعم بيقولوا لنا كيف they're going to meet their milestones. And I think COVID has accelerated that, and I think women today have understood the importance of that. And we're seeing, of course, with online education that that's as well playing a role.
Absolutely. جمانة، هلا واتش بوكس اختاروا لك ساعة جاجير كوتر ماستر جيوغرافيك هارمونايزيشن. هيدي الساعة كتير معقدة وفيها كتير functions مثل الأورز، minutes، small seconds، power reserve indicator و day night indicator. ساعة معقدة بس انت قدها وقدود. فاحكيني شوي عن شغلك. شو بتعملي انت اليوم بمايندشيفت كابيتال and what is Mindshift Capital؟
Mindshift Capital Fund بيستثمر بشركات بتقودها الستات بمجال التكنولوجيا. بنطلع على 4 سيكتورز اللي هن فينتك، هيلث تك، فود تك اند اد تك، اللي هن مجالات الستات عم بيعملوا فوري كتير سريعة فيهم. أنا I sit on the investment committee, and as an investment committee member I review all the deals and do the diligence and decide which companies to invest in on a global scale.
So why do you focus on women-led startups or companies that have a gender balance? Why is that important?
So for many reasons. The first two are there is a gap in the financing that is afforded to women. So the supply and the demand between the two is very different. So today there are 38% of female entrepreneurs that make up the bulk of total entrepreneurs, yet these entrepreneurs receive 2.5 to 5% of the capital that's invested. So when you think of this gap, you realize there's an arbitrage, and that means that you will get better valuations. You are able to really cherry pick the best deals and these exceptional women that are out there that are leading the way on that. And the other reason is, of course, to create an impact. We believe that helping bridging that gap is something that we as women who've been through the journey of what it is to rise in the ranks, would like to pay it back. And thirdly is a returns story, which I know we're going to touch upon a little bit later, but women tend to perform in some KPIs very positively, namely revenue generation, burn rate, and again, inflection trends.
So it seems almost organic that you're a female-led fund who is investing in other women as well. So you're kind of paying it forward. So
actually you're spot on. There's a lot of studies that show that women invest in women. And this is why I gave you the statistics. So as partners grow in the field of venture capital, you're going to have more female founded companies being funded.
I want to shed some light on the gender pay gap. So the gender pay gap differs from country to country. And I think the leading country in the smallest gap between men and women right now is Iceland. They have less than 1% difference in what women get paid for the same work that their men counterparts do. Do you think the gender pay gap plays a big part in holding women back or in decreasing their finances, or do you think it's not an issue?
I think it's a very big issue. I think it's an issue that needs to be addressed on so many levels. And I think it does hold women back, both in terms of career advancement, in terms of financial decision making, and certainly investing, right? Because we know that, for example, what we do in Mindshift Capital, that's considered venture investing. That's it would come after you've done your typical whether it's mutual funds and then a little bit more of a portfolio that's in the stock market. You have your real estate. Venture capital is a diversified arm that comes with a bit more maturity. So again, because of that, we do see less women who are what we call limited partners or LPs in these big funds, because they don't have as much of liquidity, which is a direct result of some of this gap that we're talking about.
What sort of advice would you give to our female viewers to encourage them to look at funds and look at stocks and consider investing their money instead of just keeping it in a savings account in a bank?
I think the time is now. I mean, I can't stress that enough. I think that if we're missing on the opportunity, we're leaving a lot of money on the table, and we're leaving a lot of growth that could be otherwise, achieved by women. So my advice is, get on the phone with your banker, ask them to show you mutual funds. Get on the phone with robo-advisors. We have, we've invested some robo-advisors here that, automate the entire process, look to the stock market and find out some of the stocks that you have a connection to, or you look at sort of their performance and see when is the time for you to get in. And lastly, look at venture. Come and talk to people like us and say, what, I want to put an amount in this fund because I think that in 5 years it's going to give me a return that is much more attractive. So I would stress that the opportunity is very important, and it's fleeting. So I would encourage our viewers to really look into it immediately.
Joumana, Watchbox هلا اختاروا لك ساعة Patek Philippe annual calendar. It's a watch that has a lot of functions like the hours, minutes, small seconds, day, date, and of course, it's an annual calendar. How important is time for you?
So, time is obviously very important, and I remember being asked about what's my favorite, sort of time pocket. Is it the seconds? Is it the minutes? Is it the hours? Is it the days? And so on. I think my answer would be definitely hours. I think if we measured our lives and our, state of happiness and sadness in hours, I think on the aggregate, we would all realize, we're on top. Time is important for an investor, and it certainly is important for me. You have to make very quick decisions under certain time constraints. But at the same time, you have to give time its time, as they say. And we spend a lot of hours, really, analyzing companies, understanding and meeting the team, looking at the product and looking at the technology underneath. So, it's both working under time constraints and really spending the time to do it right.
Joumana, what is next? What are your goals right now?
So I would love to see this fund, grow into a second fund and a third fund. We always talk about building really this as a platform for all women-led or co-led companies who would come and sort of have a VC arm that can invest, and we would be the lead, on that. So I think that's the goal, and that's where I'll be spending more and more of my time. And certainly the next part is really creating impact, both in terms of avenues for women, which I'm deeply passionate about. So across our region, certainly here and in Jordan and in Lebanon, and lastly is doing work for autism. My eldest son is autistic, and I love that technology is an enabler in so many ways. For example, the Zoom calls now, where he doesn't have to be outside of his own environment or open to outside noises, has proved to be wonderful for us. And then learning from technology. So there's a lot of social behavior type tech companies out there that teach better social cues. So for sure, spending time, whether unearthing a company like that, helping build a company in that field. So that would be another avenue for me.
I want to shift the conversation from digital technology to the technology or the mechanism that comes into fine watchmaking. Would you consider investing in timepieces?
Yes, I actually do. My husband and I, value obviously complications in watches and sort of the limited watches that one may look into as investments, and we all know that also is an asset class that that does give you returns over time. So undoubtedly, yes.
Joumana, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me. It was lovely being with you and spending time discussing these important issues. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katya.